You know that feeling when you finally get some real traction? A promotion, a business that stops bleeding, a check that clears without you having to do math 3 times. And instead of celebrating, you get quiet. Like the wind doesn't fit right. Like you're waiting for somebody to come take it back. That's what I want to talk about today. I'm Franklin, and if you're a black man somewhere between 45 and 60 who's just now starting to get on, this whole video is for you. Because there's a lie you've been carrying since your late 20s. The lie is that you're behind, that everybody else figured it out at 28 and you're the one still trying to catch up at 51. That lie has a body count. It has cost you sleep, it has cost you relationships, and it has probably cost you the ability to actually enjoy the wins when they finally show up. What I'm about to lay out is going to hit different, because the numbers say the opposite of what you've been telling yourself. The people winning right now, building the companies, running the departments, closing the deals, a lot of them are your age. Because of it, not in spite of it. Let me walk you into it slow. There's a study out of MIT and the Census Bureau. 4 researchers, Azuli, Jones, Kim, and Miranda, went and looked at 2.7 million people who started companies in the United States. Not a survey, not a vibe, actual founders, actual businesses, actual outcomes. And they wanted to answer one simple question. How old are the people who actually build successful companies? Because if you watch TV or scroll a phone, you'd think everybody worth anything is 24 with a hoodie and a pitch deck. The answer they got was 45. The average age of a founder who builds a top-performing company in this country is 45 years old. Not 25, not 30, 45. And it gets sharper than that. A 50-year-old founder is nearly twice as likely to build a runaway success as a 30-year-old. The Kellogg School at Northwestern ran the numbers and landed in the same place. Multiple research teams, same finding. Read that back to yourself. The 50-year-old you've been apologizing for being is statistically the most dangerous person in the room. So the question stops being, why am I behind? And starts being, why did I ever believe I was behind in the first place? Somebody sold you a story, and the story didn't match the math. Here's where I want you to catch what's really going on. The reason older founders win comes down to something plain. The researchers were clear about it. Older founders win because of industry experience, because they've been in a field long enough to see 3 or 4 cycles of the same nonsense. They know which vendors are lying. They know which clients are going to ghost you at invoice time. They know which employee is about to quit 2 weeks before that employee knows. They've built a network that actually returns calls. They've made the expensive mistakes on somebody else's dime, and they don't have to make them again. That is you. That's your resume. 22 years of somebody else's payroll teaching you exactly how the game works. You just weren't calling it training. You were calling it a job you were tired of. But your body was learning. Your instincts were sharpening. You were becoming the exact profile of person the data says builds the biggest companies in America. And here's the little cruel joke on top. While you were building all that pattern recognition, the culture kept telling you that you were running out of time. Magazine covers of 22-year-olds. LinkedIn posts from some 29-year-old talking about scaling. Your cousin's boy who flipped something and made a bag. Every one of those messages was landing on your chest like a small brick, and you were stacking them into a wall, and you were standing behind the wall thinking, damn, I really did miss it. You didn't miss anything. The bus you thought left the station at 25 was actually pulling up at 45, and a lot of you are just now realizing it's parked out front. Let me flip the lens, because we can't just sit in the good news. There's a reason late feels louder for Black Gen X men specifically, and this is where the psychology gets thick. The National Institute on Retirement Security put out a report in July 2023, and the number is ugly. The typical Gen X household has $40,000 saved for retirement. Total. Not per year, total. And the bottom half of Gen X has almost nothing. When they broke it out by race, Black and Hispanic Gen X households were sitting at less than half of their retirement savings target. Less than half. The Society of Actuaries backed that up with fresher numbers in 2024. Average retirement savings for Black households, around $188,000. For white households, around $435,000. Black households have less than half the retirement wealth. That's the math. That's not a feeling. And before somebody in the comments says, well, people just need to save more, pump the brakes. The Department of Labor's own advisory council pulled the Economic Policy Institute data. In 2019, Black workers were earning 14.9% less than white workers doing comparable work. That gap had gotten worse. It was 10.2% in 2012. So the gap widened during the exact years Gen X was supposed to be stacking. You can't save what you never got paid. So when I say late success isn't a luxury for a lot of you, I mean that literally. It's arithmetic. If the retirement account looks like that at 52, then the business hitting at 55, the promotion landing at 57, the second income stream turning on at 58, that's the plan. That's the whole plan. Which brings me to the part that's harder to say out loud. A lot of you have been carrying two jobs your entire adult life, the one on the W-2 and the one nobody paid you for, being the person who couldn't afford to fall apart. You had a mother who needed help. You had kids who needed shoes. You had a brother who needed bail money one time and a cousin who needed a couch for 6 months. You had an ex you were still writing checks for. You had a house note that stretched you thin and a car note you should have never signed. And on top of all that, you were the one at work who couldn't get written up for being 5 minutes late because you knew what that would look like. That's a job description. And that job doesn't leave a lot of room for what venture capitalists call risk tolerance. You couldn't quit and try something. You had to keep the lights on. So the entrepreneurial move a 26-year-old with no dependents could make on a Tuesday, you couldn't touch until the youngest one graduated. That's responsibility doing exactly what responsibility does. Before I keep going, I've been working on something on the side. A book called Psychology of Black Gen X Men. It gets into the stuff that got wired into you young and what it's doing to you now. The patterns you can't quite explain about yourself. Links in the description if you want to look. And to everyone watching and sharing this stuff, genuinely, thank you. Now let's get into the business side, because there's more here. The Babson College Entrepreneurship Report, the GEM study, the one that tracks who's actually starting businesses in America, found that in 2018, about 26.4% of Black adults in the U.S. were involved in entrepreneurship. That's the highest rate of any group. Higher than white, higher than Asian, higher than Hispanic. Black folks in this country start businesses at the highest rate. Full stop. But the same report showed something else. Black-owned businesses have a lower established business rate, around 5.4% versus about 10.3% for white-owned. Established meaning the business survived past the early years and turned into something durable. So the starting is happening. The staying is where it gets choked. Why does it get choked? The NBER working paper by Ewens dug into that. Black-owned firms fail at a rate about 20% higher than white-owned firms. And the biggest reason comes down the capital. When the first bad quarter hits, and there's always a first bad quarter, you don't have the cushion. You go out of business because you were undercapitalized, not because the idea was wrong. Now stack all of that. You're the group most likely to start something. You're the group with the least runway to survive the first storm. You're doing it while making 14.9% less at the day job. And you're being asked, at 45, why haven't you succeeded yet? The wonder isn't that some of you are winning late. The wonder is that you're winning at all. And a lot of you are. Here's where the reframe locks in. Every year of that grind, every year you kept the day job while trying to build the side thing, every year you paid down debt instead of taking a swing, every year you took care of family instead of taking a founder salary. That was tuition. You were paying for the experience the MIT data says is the actual predictor of success. You were becoming the 45-year-old the study talks about. You just were doing it while carrying more weight than most of the people you were being compared to. So when it hits at 51 or 53, given what you were working with, that's actually early. But I have to get honest with you about the shadow side, because this is where a lot of you are getting hurt right now without naming it. The vigilance that got you here doesn't turn off just because the numbers finally look right. The habit of scanning the room for threats, the habit of not spending money on yourself, the habit of not telling anybody when something good happened for fear of the evil eye, all that stayed wired in. So when the success actually shows up, you can't feel it. The bank account crossed a number you would have cried over at 30, and at 52 you look at it and go, okay, what's next? No pause, no breath, no enjoyment. Some of you are running businesses that clear real money and you still won't take a vacation. Some of you got promoted to a title you would have killed for at 35, and you can't tell your friends because you don't want to be on some new stuff. Some of you finally got the house and you're already stressed about the roof. Harvard did a symposium in May 2024 on the mental health of Black men in this country. Some of the numbers they surfaced will sit you down. Black men are about 4 times more likely to die by suicide than Black women. This is the cost of the emotional posture we've been asked to hold. And that posture, the I'm good, I'm straight, I got it, doesn't magically drop when your income doubles. If anything, it can dig in. Because now, on top of not being allowed to struggle publicly,
You're not allowed to celebrate publicly either. So you're stuck in a middle place where the win exists on paper, but you can't actually let it into your body. I want to say this part carefully. Getting to the money is one project. Learning how to let yourself have the money is a whole other project. And the second one is the one nobody warned you about. You'll see a man hit it late and buy his mother the house he always said he was going to buy her, and then not sleep for a week because he's worried about the property tax. You'll see a man start a business at 49, get it to profitable at 53, and then not take a single day off for the next 4 years because if he sits down, he's afraid the whole thing collapses. You'll see a man finally get the corner office at 56 and start losing his hair from stress because he's convinced they're going to figure out he doesn't belong there. What looks like humility there is really a nervous system that never got the memo that the fight is over, or at least that this particular fight is over. Because here's what the data actually says about people your age. The FINRA Foundation put out a report in October 2024 comparing generations financially. Of Gen X folks who own retirement accounts, more than 80% are still actively contributing right now. Only about 10% took a 401k loan in the past year, which means Gen X, right now, in what should be your peak earning years, is trying. You're not giving up. You're pushing money into accounts. You're doing the work. The Forbes write-up of the NIRS numbers made the same point. Gen X is now in their peak earning window. The shortfall that looks scary on paper, it's still fixable. There's still runway. There's still time. But only if you actually take the swings you've earned the right to take. Here's where I want to plant something. The story you tell yourself at this age becomes the plan. If the story is, I'm behind, I missed it, I'm just trying to hang on till 67, then that's the plan and that's what happens. If the story is, I've been in training for 25 years and the data literally says my window is right now, then that's a different plan. That's a person who takes the meeting. That's a person who launches the business. That's a person who negotiates the raise. That's a person who finally says out loud, I want more, and I'm allowed to want more. Let me give you the specific behavior traces because I don't want to leave this abstract. The man who's about to succeed late, you can tell who he is by what he does. He starts saying no to things he used to say yes to out of guilt. He
stops answering the phone at 11 p.m. for problems that aren't his. He starts reading things about his industry that don't have anything to do with his current job. He's studying the field, not just the position. He gets a physical for the first time in 8 years. He starts writing things down, goals, numbers, deadlines. He gets specific. Specificity is a symptom of decision. Vagueness is a symptom of hoping. The man who's stuck, he's still explaining, still narrating why it hasn't happened yet, still measuring himself against people who had a completely different set of starting conditions, still consuming content about success instead of building the thing, still busy, real busy, so busy he doesn't have time to make the one call that would change everything. The difference between those two men comes down to which story they decided was true about being 50. They're both smart. They both work hard. One of them believed the MIT number. The other one believed the magazine cover. Now let's talk about what success even means at this stage, because I don't want you chasing somebody else's picture. A lot of the founder data talks about high-growth companies, venture-backed, scaling fast, headlines. That's one version. If that's what you're building, great. The numbers say you're in the strike zone. But most late success for Gen X men doesn't look like that. It looks like the consultant who finally goes independent and doubles his old salary in year 2. It looks like the guy who spent 20 years in facilities management and starts a company servicing 3 buildings, then 8, then 18. It looks like the man who finally writes the book he's been talking about for a decade and it turns into a speaking career. It looks like the pastor who starts a nonprofit at 54 and by 60 is running programs in 4 cities. It looks like the guy who finally sells the piece of land his grandfather left him and puts the money into something that actually grows. Success at this stage is often quieter than the internet version. It's paying off the house. It's putting a kid through school without debt. It's finally being able to fly your mama down to see you. It's having enough sitting there that a bad month at work is a problem you solve on Tuesday and forget by Friday. That's the win. That's what all this pressure was pointing at. Once you can name that as the actual finish line, the shame drops off. Because a lot of the "I'm behind" feeling was you comparing your finish line to somebody else's when they weren't even running your race. Let me talk to the man in the middle of it right now, because I know you're watching. You've got a job that pays okay. You've got something on the side that's starting to move. You've got a family situation that's mostly settled but has a couple of ongoing situations because life. You're tired. You're not exhausted. You're tired. Different thing. And you're wondering if this, right here, where you are, is as good as it's going to get. I want to tell you what the data would tell you if it could sit across from you at the table. The data would say, the next 7 years are statistically the most productive years of your professional life. Not the last 7, the next 7. The pattern recognition you've built, the network you've built, the reputation you've built, all of it is loaded up right now, ready to be spent. And the men who spend it are the ones the researchers write papers about. The ones who don't spend it, they go quiet. They stay at the job. They keep saying next year, and next year keeps becoming this year, and this year keeps becoming last year, and the runway keeps getting shorter. The opportunity didn't leave. They just never took the swing. You are allowed to take the swing. You've earned it. Nobody has to hand you permission. The permission was already granted by every year you kept showing up. Now here's the piece I don't want to skip, because it's the piece that actually matters most for the man watching this on his lunch break, wondering if any of it applies to him. I told you what the winners do. I told you what the stuck ones do. I didn't tell you how to get from one to the other when your nervous system has spent 30 years wired for defense, because that's the actual gap. Information isn't the block. You have information. You've watched 100 videos. You've read the books. You know about compound interest, and you know about LLCs, and you know about diversification. The block is that your body doesn't believe it's safe to move yet. And until the body believes it, the mind can plan all at once. Nothing happens. So let's talk about how the body catches up. First thing, you have to let one person in on what you're actually trying to build. One, not the whole crew at the cookout, not your ex, not your mama, because your mama's gonna worry. One person who can hold the plan without flinching and without trying to fix it. Might be your brother, might be a man you came up with in the industry, might be a therapist, and yeah, I said therapist. Call it operational security. The Harvard numbers I gave you earlier don't lie. Black men carrying everything by themselves are dying from carrying everything by themselves. Getting one other set of eyes on the plan is a strategic move. Second thing, you have to practice spending on yourself in small, controlled doses before the big money hits. Because if you can't spend $50 on a good meal without feeling guilty at 51, you're not going to know what to do with $50,000 of profit at 54. The muscle has to be trained. Buy the good coffee. Get the shoes resold instead of running them into the ground. Take the Saturday afternoon and don't do anything productive with it. These sound small. They're your nervous system learning that money can be for you and not just for the emergency. Third thing, you have to stop consulting the ghost of your 30-year-old self about decisions your 52-year-old self is making. Your 30-year-old self was broke, scared, and running on fumes. His opinions are not qualified. He doesn't get a vote on whether you take the meeting or launch the business or ask for the raise. The person qualified to make this decision is the man who's been in the field for 2.5 decades and has seen every version of this movie already. Let him drive. Fourth thing, and this one's uncomfortable, you have to be willing to outgrow some people. Not cut them off, not be ugly about it. When you start moving, some folks around you are going to get quiet. Some are going to get sideways. Some are going to start reminding you of who you used to be, because who you used to be was easier for them to be around. That's not always malice. Sometimes it's just discomfort, but you can't slow your pace to match somebody else's comfort with your success. If you do, the whole late bloom window closes and you spend it managing other people's feelings about you finally winning. Fifth thing, you have to write the number down, the actual number. What do you need to have and by when for this to have been worth it? Not a vibe, not financially free, a number and a date. Because the researchers who studied the 45-year-old founders, one of the things they noticed is those founders were specific. They knew what they were aiming at. Vagueness is the enemy at this stage. You don't have time for vague anymore. You've got time for precise. Now let me zoom back out, because I want to leave you with the shape of the whole thing. The story you got sold. The one where success is a young man's game. The one where 45 is late. The one where if it hasn't happened by 35, it's not going to happen. That story was never about you. It was a marketing message. It was designed to sell hoodies and pitch decks and expensive coffee to 24-year-olds. It was never a description of how success actually works in the American economy. The description of how success actually works in the American economy is sitting in a Census Bureau dataset published by MIT, confirmed by Kellogg, and it says 45. 45. The average age of the founder of a top-performing company in this country is the exact age a whole lot of Black Gen X men are right now, this month, watching this video, wondering if they missed it. You didn't miss it. You are it. The data is describing you. The window the researchers are pointing at, that's the window you're standing in. And here's the last thing I'll say, because I want you to walk away with it. Late is a word other people put on you. On time is a decision you make about yourself. The man who decides he's on time at 51 acts like he's on time at 51, takes the meeting, makes the call, writes the number down, spends the good money on the good meal, lets one person in, stops arguing with the ghost of who he used to be. 2 years later, he's not talking about being late anymore. He's just working. The man who decides he's late at 51 keeps being late at 53, at 55, at 58. He agreed to be late. Don't agree to be late. The math doesn't say you are. The researchers don't say you are. Your resume doesn't say you are. The only person still saying you are is you, and you can stop saying it whenever you want. Quick thing before I go. Psychology of Black Gen X men came out of doing this channel and realizing all these topics connect into one bigger story about how you got built. So to everyone who was able to get it, or anyone thinking about it, thank you for supporting the channel, genuinely. It's in the description if you want to check it out. All right now, there's another one right there on the screen. Go ahead.